Hey, what's up? It's Jared with Ditch Auto. I'm going to talk today about the Viltrox 85mm f1.8 lens. Now, the reason that I wanted to talk about this lens is because it is a very nice 85mm fully autofocus lens that's available for the Sony platform. That's what I'm using it on, but it comes in a couple different variations as well. So if you have different cameras, chances are they probably make this lens for it. But I am testing it on Sony. I have tested it on both the a6400 and on the a7 III. I would have it right now to show you on the a7 III, but that's what I'm filming this video with. The thing that I was most interested in is actually comparing this lens to the 85 G Master that I have, which I'm actually filming with as well right now. So the camera I'm looking into is an a7 III and an 85mm G Master. The G Master lens is absolutely great. I use that lens so much. But when I saw this lens, I thought to myself, okay, now there's a nice little compact 85mm lens with a fast f1.8 aperture. The price just seems too good to be true. I almost thought there had to be some issue right out the gate, like maybe it wasn't autofocus. But when I saw that it was autofocus lens, I thought, okay, now I'm interested and I want to give it a try. So I spent some time taking photos with it. Of course, I tried to take some of the same exact photos with the 85mm G Master just so that I'd have a good comparison. And this isn't really a comparison video. What it really is just a video on this lens, but I wanted to talk about the 85mm G Master because the lines are a little blurred there. Of course, there are some things that this lens is not perfect at, and I'm going to touch on those. But the price difference between the G Master and this lens is substantial. So that's something to take into consideration. So this 85mm lens, it was interesting to me essentially because it's a fast f1.8. There are Sony-made f1.8 lenses that are still more expensive than this, but relatively okay priced. This lens seems to be better than that lens. I had that 85mm kind of base level lens from Sony. Used it for a little bit, didn't find really a use for it, went back to my bigger and heavier 85mm G Master. So this lens, I believe, actually really kind of reminds me more of the 85mm Zeiss. And what's really funny and even leads me to believe more that maybe this lens was modeled after that 85mm Zeiss is that all of the photos that I shot with this, when I imported them into Lightroom and I applied the lens correction profile or enabled it, it read this lens as the 85mm Zeiss Batiste lens, which I thought was very interesting to me. I've had that lens. I absolutely loved it. But once again, how many 85mm lenses do you have? I really wanted to go with the one that was overall the best, which is why I've stuck with my G Master. So this 85mm lens is over and above what you pay for. You're getting a lot of value out of this lens because it's a fast lens, it's a solid lens, solid body construction. It's not a cheap plasticky lens at all. It has a giant focus ring on it, which is nice for those of you that want to shoot more manual, whether you're shooting photo or video with it. And it's just a absolute blast. It's a 72mm filter thread, so most of your filters are going to thread right onto this because it's a pretty common filter thread size. And the lens just fits well and works well, whether you have the APS-C, like A6000 line of cameras, or you have an A7 line, or even an A9 for that matter. So people were confused. I was posting some photos of this and people were asking me why I put full frame lenses on an APS-C body like this. And the reason being is that I would rather invest in full frame lenses for my full frame cameras because I have full frame cameras. If all I was ever going to shoot on was APS-C bodies, I might consider an APS-C lens over putting a full frame lens on an APS-C body. One of the nice things about Sony is that you can use these lenses cross-platform. So APS-C lenses that were designed for an A6000 line of cameras can be used on an A7 line. The A7 line just shoots in an APS-C mode. And vice versa, you could put a full frame lens on an APS-C camera, and essentially you don't get the 85mm, you get more like, I think it's like 102mm or something like that out of the lens, but it works great and the camera adapts appropriately. So this Viltrox lens was a huge surprise to me because at the price, it provides exceptional value and produces beautiful images. This lens is great also in video. It's nice and quiet. It's definitely not as quiet as some of the higher end lenses, but it is very quiet in video mode. I could get away with using this lens in video mode easily. Now with Sony's eye autofocus features and some of its fast autofocusing features, those things can be hindered by the lens that you put on your camera. And I didn't notice really any slowdown in the operation of my camera by putting this lens on this A6400 or even on my A7 III. And last week I had to send back an A9 that I was renting. I did put this lens on the A9 just for the heck of it, just to give it a try, and it performed well on the A9 as well. I didn't notice any real issues there. Things that you typically would notice if you went with a lower end Sony brand lens, I didn't notice in a lens like this. So the photos are definitely great. There are some situations with softness around the edges when you're shooting wide open at that f1.8. That's something that you're going to get with most lenses anyways, so you can't really fault a lens at this price point for having that shortcoming. What is nice though is that when you shoot wide open so that you get that shallow depth of field, the bokeh you're getting on your image and just the fall off that you get of your focus is just nice and natural, and it just feels really good. When I look at the images, I am relatively pleased at the image that I captured, considering that I'm shooting with a lens of this price point. And this lens is very affordable for what it is. So with that said, I can highly recommend this lens because it performs as well as it does. Now, I haven't really had much experience with Viltrox as a company, but I have had a couple of their video lights. They made some video lights, and I talked about one a while ago that I used on my cameras to just light different situations when I didn't have a lot of room to really like carry heavy stuff and bigger lighting. And I was really impressed with that Viltrox light. So I'm excited to see them really expanding and getting into other products as well. Whether or not they copied the Zeiss 85mm or not, or if it's just they copied the profiling so that you'd have some profile corrections available, I don't really know. It's not something that I really wanted to get in a conversation with them about. I just found it very funny and interesting when I did import my photos into Lightroom and it thought that I was shooting with a Zeiss 85mm. So if this lens is very much like a Zeiss architecture, then one could be said that you're saving a lot of money by going with this Viltrox 85. I don't have the Zeiss 85 for me to just really side-by-side compare them. All I have is what I was available to find online, and they do seem somewhat similar in their architecture. Definitely there are companies out there that do duplicate other people's products, and I'm not saying that Viltrox did that, but I do think that Viltrox went out and looked at what's available and said, okay, what is good about what's available? Let's make it better for the money, and then we'll produce our product that way. And I think they really succeeded with this 85mm. So I've been showing you some photos and some video clips. It's very hard to see the quality of this stuff when you're viewing images and whatnot on YouTube videos, but I did share some photos along with my written post about this lens on the Ditch Auto website, so you want to make sure to go and check that out. Now, if you're wanting to learn how to get better photos out of your cameras, learning how to shoot in manual mode is something that you need to understand, and I have a free course on shooting in manual mode that I want you to check out. If you go to ditchauto.com, or there's also links down below, you can get access to that course. It's a free course, and by the end of it, you will totally understand how to shoot in manual mode, how to take better control of your camera so that you can get better looking images. You're going to get those good images by understanding how to control your aperture to get that shallow depth of field, by setting your shutter speed appropriately and understanding how the ISO affects the overall quality and clarity of your image and the brightness as well. So understanding these things are going to help you become a better photographer. That's why I put out the free course. I hope that you check it out. If you have any questions about this lens or any comments, definitely share them down in the comment section below. If I deserved it, give this video a thumbs up, and I hope to see you back here in the next one. Take care.